All right, we're live. Are we live? What's up? Okay. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in early. I saw a lot of you waiting to get it going, so I appreciate that so much. Let me know you're out there. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope the stream's going good. Just a word about last week. Obviously had some internet issues. I'm assuming that something happened with my Wi-Fi that kind of cut out here in the studios. I'm talking about last week's broadcast session. And so if that happens tonight, if it freezes up, what's up, Jerry? If it freezes up tonight and I have to restart this stream, if it freezes up and it's sitting there for a couple minutes or whatever it is, just roll back to the channel page and see if a new stream, I might have had to have initiated a new stream. Hopefully it doesn't happen tonight. I mean, that's the first time that's happened out here on YouTube Live. So right on. I appreciate everybody. Let's see. We got Rusty from Jersey. Excellent. Elias, thanks for jumping on. The Empty Pickle Jar in Ottawa. Awesome. Jim, as always, representing Canada. Love it. Duke from Missouri. Thank you. And Charlie Boy. Yes, good to see you. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for jumping on. Oh, we've got MKA Melt is back. Welcome. And Dree in California. Excellent. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Look in the description below this video. Once again, we have a link to a PDF that you can open it in your browser, download it. Russell from Colorado. Thank you. Welcome. Got some tabs for tonight. And Ross is here. Awesome. Kenneth from Pittsburgh representing. Thanks for coming back, Kenneth. Good to see you. Thanks, everybody, for jumping on with me. Tonight, we're talking about the blues scale. So we're going to do a little playing. Probably not going to be as an extensive all-talking session tonight. And we'll probably get through this with some time to spare. So if you got any guitar-related question, queue it up, have it ready on the comments, or if you want to put it in the comments, I'll roll back when we get the chance on the other side of this sort of topic, and we'll go from there. So once again, anybody able to download that PDF with the tabs for tonight examples, some things I'm going to go through. All right, Ireland, can't even talk already. Alan, thank you for joining. Excellent. Okay, so blues scale, right? So let's just start. Excellent, Rusty. Okay, so we got it. We got the handout. I'm just going to start at the very first part of just scales. Okay, the blues scale is just an extension of the minor pentatonic scale. Just adds one note to it. So James from Syracuse, welcome. Awesome. So I'm just going to start at the beginning with a full minor scale and sort of spell out and just talk a little bit about, and hopefully review or reinforce some of the ways that we think of scales a little bit, so that hopefully we can add this to the understanding of everything. SFK, will you talk about combining major and minor scales into a solo? I will do that towards the end of the session. I will get to it after I get through this material here, but that's a great topic, actually, that I could make a whole a session out of in the future. So if I don't quite get enough time to go through that, I might put together something for a future session. So let's talk about scales. I'm going to start with the minor scale, because the blues, what we're talking about here is a blues scale is really an extension of the minor pentatonic scale. So I'm just going to start at the beginning of the full minor scale. Okay. I'm going to use A as an example. A minor. Peter's here. Welcome, sir. All right. So, in order to visualize this a little bit, because we're, with the tab at the first the top of this page, this handout, I'm going in this position. Okay, so A note, 5th fret of the low string. Not a problem, Mr. Daniel. Thanks for joining us. We're just getting started. I'm talking about the full natural minor scale. That's 7 notes that take us to the octave. Okay, so root, major second, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major, minor sixth, my bad, minor seventh, and then octave root. Okay, I want to start talking, at least off the top, I want to talk a little bit about the scale degrees, which are the distance between the notes in the scale to the root, the scale degree or the interval. Okay, we need to think about these things a little bit. It makes getting all of these different scales a little clearer in your mind if you understand this at this level. Okay, so I'm just gonna, bear with me as I go through it a little bit. So once again, root, major second, minor third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, minor sixth, minor seventh, octave root. That takes us to the next A note. Okay, so once again, that's fifth, seventh, eighth on the low string, fifth fret, I'm talking about frets, fifth, seventh, eighth on the A string or the fifth string, 5 and 7 on the D string. This is the sound of the minor scale, specifically the A minor scale. Okay, from BC, Murray, right on, representing more CanCon coming in. All right, awesome. That's the sound of the natural minor scale. Okay, from that scale, we go to the pentatonic minor scale, which takes 2 of the notes out of it. Okay, and then we're left with this familiar minor pentatonic box. Now there's 5 notes getting us to the higher octave. Okay, 5th fret of the low string, 8th fret of the low string, 5th fret of the 5th string, 7th fret of the 5th string, and then 5 and 7 on the D string or 4th string. Okay, that, when I'm talking about scale degrees, I'm talking about root, which is the 1. The third, which is minor in this case, okay, flat third. Perfect fourth, perfect fifth, and then flat 7th or minor 7th to the octave root. Now the blues scale adds in 1 note to the minor pentatonic scale, and that note is the flat 5, or the minor 5th, I guess, or diminished 5th. There's lots of different nomenclature, naming ways to name this, basically. But commonly, it's known as the flat 5. Okay? Why is it known as the flat 5? Well, we're adding in the note between the 4th scale degree, which is at the 5th fret of the 5th string, and the 5th scale degree, or the perfect 5th, perfect 4th, perfect 5th, at the 5th and 7th fret of the A string, okay? The note in between, you're basically flatting the 5, okay? Which is where you get the name, the flat 5. Okay, so now we've got the sound of the scale as you see it in exercise 1A, okay? So right away, you can hear more of that bluesy sound added in. This is what just the straight pentatonic minor scale sounds like. Okay, add in the blues note, that flat 5. Adds that element of bluesiness, hence the blues scale, right? So cool. Now, a lot of times the flat 5 note in this context, we'll call it the blue note or the blues note when we're speaking specifically about that extra note that we're adding into the scale. All right, so I'm not going to go any further now because I'm going to show you a bunch of different patterns, so really common patterns of using this blues scale. Okay, I'm going to expand upon this little box right here. This is a 1 octave box. Now, the first thing that I recommend anyone doing, well, there's 2 things. First thing, when you learn a new scale and you mess around with it and try to get it under your fingers, the first thing you should do is try and memorize a pattern of it. And so in this case, the first pattern that I recommend you memorizing is this very pattern. Okay, And ideally, we want to try and memorize everything that we're learning, okay? Try to internalize it as quickly as you can, all right? Now, so once you've memorized this pattern, it's not terribly difficult to memorize, particularly if you already know the minor pentatonic box shapes, right? All right, memorize that. The next thing that I suggest you do is try and find that pattern. It's kind of a micro box or a micro pattern, right? It's across 3 strings. We're in the key of A minor, okay? And I've just learned the A blues scale in A minor, 1 octave pattern. I want to try and find all the A notes, or as many A notes as I can across the fretboard, and try that pattern out, okay? So I'm here. Where else can I play it? I can play it off the open A string, right? Exactly the same notes. Here's the thing about the guitar is that you can find exactly the same notes in multiple spots across the fretboard. So there's a little bit of figuring out going on, right? So move up a string set and imagine that there was a capo right here, right? If there was open strings, and just transplant it down here across. Now I've got the root note on an open string. So this becomes sort of an open pattern, right? But that shouldn't scare you off, because anywhere in this pattern that you use your index finger for can now be taken care of by the nut, but with an open string. So now just figure out the relative frets from it. So I've got the open A string, then it's going to go to the 3rd fret of the 5th string, then the open D string, and then chromatically 1st and 2nd frets. Where's our blues note? Right there on the 1st fret, right? Then the open G string, 2nd fret of the open G string is my octave A. Right? Now, keep going. Go up to, here's another A note, 7th fret of the D string. Little tricky, right? Because if you play that exact pattern starting on the 4th string, the same pattern, but now I'm starting on a different string set, starting on the 4th string, 7, 8, 9, 8 and 10 on the B string. If I play that pattern straight without making that adjustment on the B string, whoa, not right. You can hear it. Kind of a cool sound anyway, but that's not what we're going for. It's because that B string is tuned flat. You have to account for that by moving up a fret. All right, so figure that out. Go, okay, I can, I learned that little scale across 3 strings. Now I can move it all over the place. Right, here's another A note. 12th fret of the A string. That same pattern, right? You're going to run out of room if you do it on the top 2 strings, but at least you can get part of that, right? You can get part of those notes in there. All right, so always try and do that. Always try to find, okay, I'm in the key of A minor. Let's find a lot of different A's and just move it around. And just satisfy yourself with like, yeah, I can play that pattern in all different positions on the neck, okay? Then go a step further and go, let's choose some different keys. Choose some different root notes, okay? G, for example. Well, all I have to do is move that pattern down 2 frets. Okay, your ear is going to kind of be tweaked a little bit at first because you're changing the key of it, right? But the scale degrees, the formula for the scale, the notes or the pattern is exactly the same. Root, flat 3rd or minor 3rd, 4th, flat 5, 5th, flat 7, octave root. Right? Pick different keys. D blues. Right? Try and find once you learn a little pattern, move it around and find all different spots to get comfortable with it. Okay. Moving on. Okay. So that now you know what the formula is for the blues scale. So I'm going to show you a few common different patterns. And the next one, 1B in the handout, simply extends to that full 6-string minor pentatonic box that we all usually learn and know and love. Okay. In this case, we're adding in the flat 5 on the A string, 6th fret. We're also going to add it in on the 8th fret of the G string. So when you put it together, right? Very common pattern here. So because a lot of times you're soloing, particularly in the blues, but all genres, a lot of times you're locked in that pattern, right? Especially at first, when you're getting used to putting together some improvisation, putting together some leads, right? And playing it backwards, absolutely. All right, so there's that. Okay, and I'm going to move on to 1C. Okay, second staff line in the handout is a micro box, I call it. And what I'm doing is I'm sort of shifting down 2 frets from where I was. Okay, if you guys are familiar with the caged patterns, there are 5 caged patterns that butt up together positionally on the fretboard, and that works for all scales. Okay, so I'm sort of in the position of a pattern that's right next door to the minor pentatonic box that we all know. But this is a really common pattern to learn. Starts here, once again, starts on the A note, 5th fret of the low string, and goes 3, 5, and 6 on the A string. Okay, so I'm just showing some of the notes, okay? And really, this collection of notes is contained in the previous exercise, right? It's this. That's the exact same thing up an octave within that minor pentatonic box thing, right? We can take that little micro pattern and stick it an octave lower. Okay, and I'm showing you this because this is a very common pattern, once again, all over the neck. If you learn this thing all over the neck, right? It's right there. And if you learn it in different positions, now I'm going to go back to the previous one. Okay, it's right there. Same thing here. Okay, there's my root note right there, the 10th fret of the B string. That's another A note, right? So that pattern, I just, from 1C, okay? Trite 76, I'm transfixed by the A minor scale. Can't seem to move from it. It's weird. Okay, well, it's just what you got to understand is that going from that straight minor scale to the pentatonic scale, all you're doing is just removing notes from it, okay? And so the pentatonic scale is sort of a simpler version of the full minor scale. And then once we get there, all we're doing is adding in a new note, this blues note, into that scale to give it a certain character, a certain sound, okay? So that's all it is. It's about getting familiar with the minor scale, but then branching out from that and finding other things, relating it back to the full A minor scale, but finding all the variations and all the different character and different sounds you can get by just doing little variations. Okay, I hope that helps a little bit. Mr. Daniel, minor scales are the best. Speaking of minor scales, black metal always has minor scales. I love it. Black metal. Thank you, sir. Of course it does. Rusty, hang in there, man. Listen, I know a lot of lot of this stuff might go over the head right now, but it's important to just keep playing every day. Keep working on what you're working on. Get some mobility. I promise this stuff, it doesn't stick all at once. It sticks in little pieces as you keep going. Okay, so keep going with it. All right, excellent. Cool, trade 76. I know there are 5 positions. Thank you. Yes. It's about learning in one position and getting really comfortable with it, and then going, okay, I'm going to learn another position now, right? Learn another scale pattern and add it to your vocabulary. That's what it's all about. Right on, Rusty. Glad to hear it. Cool. All right, excellent. So getting back to that pattern. Okay, we're once again, play it all over with A notes and then change the key and play it in different keys. Okay. Now, as a little more looking into 1D, now I'm going to show you how to put this together sort of diagonally across 3 of these caged patterns by thinking in terms of just that little micro sort of pattern. Okay. And extending it up to the octave. So it goes like this in 1D. So instead of playing it in one position, now I'm playing it across 2 positions. So I'm sort of going diagonally, right? So I start here, A note on the 5th fret of the low string, 3rd fret of the A string, right? And then I'm going to shift my index finger up to the 5th fret. And now I'm in that minor pentatonic box position. So I'm playing the full A blues scale, sort of cutting across 2 positions. Really useful. Okay, so. And now I'm going to continue on and do the exact same thing on the next set of strings. Okay, so you see the next part of the pattern starts in this position, 7th fret of the D, going to the 5th fret of the G, okay? Then you have to shift up 2 frets. 7, 8, 9 are the frets. And then, of course, the pesky B string, I have to go up 1 fret to the 8th and 10th to get to the higher octave. Now I'm on A again. And I'm going to finish that 3rd octave up with sort of that first pattern, right? Because I run out of strings to go up, okay? If you go up on 1 string, always a good thing to experiment with. I'm going 10, 11, 12 on the high string, then I go 13 on the high string to, 15 on the high string to 17. That's going to get to the higher octave to really complete the pattern. But I don't do it here in the transcription. I just kind of stay in this position. All right, so I've just shown you 4 sort of really common ways to think about using this blues scale. So now what's going to follow here? Yes, the 10th to the 12th fret is so tasty, B.B. King. Now, B.B. King is using a lot of major notes, which I'm not covering right now. I'm sort of sticking with the blues and the minor pentatonic right now. But I'll show you a little bit at the end how B.B. King relies on mixing the major and minor, again, to a question we had earlier about mixing those. Okay? Playing on the open A and sliding C to D. Absolutely. Any way that you can make little variations or discover things along the way, highly encouraged. All right. All right. Ozman's here. Excellent. It's all going, man. So far, we have not lost the stream. So knocking on the wood desk right now. All right. So now what follows, I've shown you some common patterns. What I'm about to show you are, the second exercise here, 2 possible application, and one of the can't talk. One of the applications of using this scale is to create riffs. Plenty of classic riffs have used the A blues scale, or just the blues scale, iconic riffs, right? Here are just a couple of examples of how you can turn this into sort of riffs, single note riffs, let's say, okay? So first one goes something like this. Right? Something like that could be a song riff, right? So if I repeat it a couple times, right? That kind of thing, okay? Using this pattern, right? Using notes in that pattern, combining it a little bit, right? What about a riff that we use the other pattern I was talking about, this one, and I came up with something. Okay, I was kind of improvising on that. I just did the first part of that riff. That was the only part that I transcribed here on the PDF. But something like that, right? Okay. You know, kind of keep going. If you go into drop D, so many drop D riffs use the blues note. Okay, so I'm just sort of changing keys a little bit just as an illustration to the key of D, right? For the low one finger power chords. Right? There's like a million songs in the 90s that have that kind of vibe to it, right? Or in the 80s as well. So okay, just as an example, okay? So riffs, yes, long live the one finger power chords, right? Cool. Okay, so riffs. I'm not spending a whole lot of time on that, but yes, put these together into riffs, combine them with power chords, use power chords for like that kind of stuff, right? Single notes, combining chords, whatever it is, play around with the blues scale. It's a great one to give that vibe to. All right, exercise 3, I put together some licks, okay? Tried to keep these on the simple side of things, but couldn't resist and did a few extra sort of expansions on this idea. But our first lick, lick 1, exercise 3A, goes something like this. Let's see if I can play it. Oh. Okay. Okay. That might be a really simple, well, arguably it's not that simple, but go slow with it. And anything, you know, just like what I was showing you with the scale patterns and like putting them all around the neck and trying to get comfortable with it all over the neck, do the same thing with these example licks, okay? Change the keys, try to figure them out in different spots of the fretboard. And also you can break them up into tiny little chunks, right? Like, what if I just repeated the first 4 notes, right? Right? You can do that. Now I'm repeating the second part of the lick, right? As with anything, getting this under your fingers is going to require you to go really slow at first. Make sure you're getting the notes properly. Make sure you're getting the rhythm properly, right? Lots of repetition will burn it in, and then you can start to raise that speed a little bit, okay? The Oz Band kicking in with playing music. If it sounds good, it's not wrong. I wholeheartedly agree with it. I love learning the rules so I can break them, right? So cool. Cool. All right. Okay, so it's a really common thing here. You'll notice that on the G string, you're pulling off from the blues note to the 7 to the 5th fret. That's a really common like move no matter what you're doing. That kind of idea, okay? The second lick, I did something more of a repeated lick. This kind of idea where hammer on and pull off between the 5th and 8th fret on the B string, and then just adding in the blues note there, 8th fret of the G string, and then just repeating that. Finishing it off with a bend up to the A note with vibrato, right? And you know, this is just one example, right? But you can just keep going with that idea, right? Like build tension in your solo, just stay on it for a while, right? Cool. All right. Edmonton shout out from Steve Harris, 20 minutes late again. Sorry, we're a little bit early on Fridays, but cool, man. I appreciate you jumping in. That's it. All right. So cool. Now we're on to 3C. Let's see what I got here. Okay. So again, just sort of a simple, let's go slowly on it. Okay. So you've got this triplet in there that's really quick. Okay. This time I'm going to the 7th fret of the G string, hammering on the 8th fret with my pinky, and then pulling it off to the 7th fret, pulling it off to the 5th fret. So there's just one pick there. Okay. Landing on the root note. Okay, so that kind of idea. There you go, Steve. Absolutely. Pete Thorne. I don't know him personally, but I have known of him. I used to live in LA and I knew of him way back then. And yeah, knew that he was from Edmonton. So there you go. We got some Alberta boys. Tearing it up, I hope. He's definitely tearing it up. All right. So that was lick 3. Again, you know, simple idea. And you can play it anywhere. Right? And again, another thing you can do here, just as like a little variation, is to, instead of doing the pinky hammer on pull off, what I see a lot of guys do, which is a really fun thing to do, is do like a quick slide back and forth. 7th fret, slide up to 8, slide back to 7, and then pull off, right? And you get sort of a different texture on it that's really cool. Just an idea, something to play with, right? Lick number 4 is kind of a fun one. You're combining some licks. Let me just sort of play this. This is really sort of a bluesy shuffle kind of thing. Okay. So in this particular lick, I am holding down the 5th fret of the B and high E string. And I'm moving notes here on the G string. And the first thing I'm doing is sliding into the 8th fret, which is the blues note, and adding it to those top notes. Now you can strum this whole thing. I think it sounds really cool if you use hybrid picking, right? Where you've got the pick on the lowest string and then you're plucking with your free fingers on the top strings. And then that way you can kind of cut it off a little bit. That kind of idea, okay? And it ends off with the double stop at the 5th fret of the G and B. A bit of a bluesy bend, right? You just pull it up just a little bit and down to the 7th fret of the D, okay? All right, so mess around with this stuff. These are meant to be sort of building blocks to like just kind of jam on and come up with your own stuff. All righty. Try it. Les Paul custom for blues and a Marshall. It's too rock sounding. Oh, use the volume knob, right? Check it out. All right, that's kind of a Marshall-y thing. Pull that Les Paul volume down. Go to the bridge pickup. Like this is my full tone right here. Right? If I just roll it down, go to the... Okay, so the volume knob is your friend. Work it. Okay, if it's sounding too much like rock, too like sort of gainy or crunchy, just bring that volume down. Okay. All right. Cool. Hope that helps. All right. Section 4, lick 5. So this is 4A. Sort of expanding on the idea from earlier. Yes, that's what happens. Cleans it up a little bit, right? For the blues, so try talking about when you bring less volume out of the guitar, it cleans up the sound a little bit, right? And for blues, you want a little bit of hair on it, right? You want it to kind of have just a bit of crunch, but not like crazy amount of distortion. So there you go. Yeah, there you go. Excellent. Okay, so bit of a longer lick here that sort of reminded me of AC/DC a little bit. So this is 4A lick 5. A little bit faster. That kind of thing, okay? Okay? Really common. That's like sort of an Angus thing. Well, just lots of rock guys will use that kind of idea. Okay, fun to play around with a little bit, right? All right, so lick 6 has something a little bit different, little interesting. This is actually I sort of plucked the main parts of this lick out of a Toto song. I wonder if somebody will figure out what Toto song I pulled this out of. So this is sort of a Lukather thing, and it features something a little bit different, which is really cool. So let me just see if I can play the lick here. Okay. Okay, so starts by sliding from the blues note. Okay, we're still in the key of A blues. We're doing a slide from the blues note to the perfect fifth. 6 to the 7th fret on the A string. And then you're hammering on the 5th and 7th frets on the D and G. Now, check it out. When you get to the B string, it's a slide from the 4th fret. And at first you're like, that kind of doesn't look right. Right? Until you realize that that's the blues note. That's the flat 5 right there. Now, we usually play it the 8th fret of the G string, but it's actually the exact same note on the 4th fret of the next string, which is the B string. So it gives you a totally different flavor if you're like sliding in, like just like what we did here. You're sliding in from the flat 5 to the 5, right? You're doing the same thing up here. Octave higher. So pretty cool. It gives a totally different thing, right? Because you're doing a slide from there. You can't really, if you did it here, you would have to like reframe the lick somehow in a different position, right? So pretty cool. If anyone can name that Toto song, bonus bragging rights tonight. I don't have any prizes to give out, but that would be cool if somebody recognized it. How are we all doing? Everybody good? All right. Now we're going on to part 5. So yeah, I wanted to start getting into showing you sort of how to use this in some different positions, okay? And some sample licks in different positions. So one of them is, what if you've got the A note up here at the 14th fret of the G string? And the complication here is that, again, you're going to go to notes on the B string and you have to compensate by moving up 1 fret. So that little box pattern that we did here, it looks a little different up here. So at the 14th fret of the G string being your root, to sort of play that micro pattern, you're going to have to go 13, 15, 16 on the B string. Down to 12 for the flat 7, the G note, and back up to the 14th fret for the root. Okay. No, it's not Hold the Line. Good guess, though. Okay, so we're back up here. This lick, so lick 7 is... And that's it. So you can resolve it or just stay on the flat 3rd there, right? Try it. It's like part of just learning the fretboard a little bit. You want to be able to jump in different octaves in different parts of the fretboard. And because when you get improvising or playing or doing leads, like all of that stuff is valuable to sort of know how to work anywhere on the fretboard, no matter where you end up, right? So that's cool. All right, 5B is lick 8. It's the exact same. It was the exact same lick, except here. Okay, so just like what we were talking about right now with Stride 76. Okay, so it looks like that micro pattern when you've got it up at the 10th fret of the B string, because, okay, but you just have to make that accommodation when you start on the G string and go up to the B string. It's just a little bit different because that B string is tuned flat. Oh no, Sophia, I'm sorry about that. Darn daylight savings, right? Sorry about that. But you can catch it on repeat, so it's all good. At least you made it here. All right. Right on, Ozman. Thanks for dropping in. And Zemret, excellent. Good to see you, sir. All right. I shouldn't assume, sir. I'm not familiar with that name, so I apologize if I got that wrong. Okay. 5C, lick 9. Okay. Here we go. Whoops. I'll play that total lick, Peter. I'll play it in a little bit, okay? All right, so now I'm playing out of that position that we learned in the very first exercise, right? And I took this lick from a Deep Purple song, actually. And he played it really fast, and he did it a couple times. Cool. No, it is not a 335 behind me, but it is a semi-hollow guitar. It's sort of a mix of a 335 and a Les Paul. It's an ESP guitar, if you're familiar with that brand. They have a sub-brand called X-Tone. And it's sort of a mix of a Les Paul and a 335. So that's what's back there. So this lick just shows you the kind of things that you can come up with just with a couple notes in that pattern, right? It's that original box pattern that we learned, up an octave, Okay, another cool example of what you can do with this scale. All right, so that's pretty much where I'm going to leave it for the blues scale. And I guess before I leave this, I will play the Rosanna lick. Okay, let's see. Right here. All right, so the end of Rosanna, if I transpose that lick that I played and transpose it up to the key of D minor pentatonic or D blues, he mixes the blues. It's a little bit different the way it ends, but he mixes it with, did I just give away what it was, Rosanna? That's the lick. That's the song that I lifted that. See if I can get into it. Something like that, right? So the first part of that lick, but he does a little something different here where he goes minor, right? Something like that. Probably not played it as well as the master, Steve Lukather, but I keep trying, right? Okay, cool. That's the song. It was from Rosanna. Did we watch John on the Grammys? Yes, Sophia. John Mayer played a great solo. Sounded great. John Mayer, right? That was awesome. Cool. All right. So I wanted to actually, as a bonus, talk a little bit about sort of like the cousin, a distant cousin of the blues scale. Okay. And it's sort of a similar idea when you sort of think about the relative major. Okay. So for example, if we're in E minor, right? And we play that box pattern. Okay. Hey, Jamaica. Right on, Mark. Awesome. Okay. So there's the minor pentatonic or the E blues. Now, if you think about the relative major of that, relative major is G. And if you use the blues scale, but start on the G note and end on the G note, the exact same pattern, you get what's known, sometimes it's called the major blues scale. Okay. I hesitate to like tell you that that's exactly what it is because I've only seen it here and there. But bluegrass and country people use this all the time. Okay. And it's, when you think of it in terms of major pentatonic, they're different scale degrees. Okay. But the pattern is so similar to what we're doing with the minor pentatonic or the blues, right? Okay. That you end up with something that's called what they call the G run in bluegrass terminology. Okay. And I just actually learned this today. There's a great video on YouTube by Brian Sutton, who's a Nashville-based acoustic player, country guy, bluegrass guy, one of the greatest there is. And he's got a little video that describes this whole thing. But and the idea is that you hear sort of like, you hear that idea. So what I did is I turned that into a lick in the key of A. And this is more of a major sound, but it's related to that blues scale. It's just sort of like the major version of it. And the lick goes like this. Okay. So I think you all can recognize sort of the bluegrass and country sort of sound of, you know, that kind of idea. So we're just going up in octaves there. The first one. Right? When you think of A major pentatonic, okay? Remember the sound of major pentatonic is that My Girl. So I've got the open A string, I've got the second and fourth fret of the A string, second and fourth fret of the D string landing on the octave root, second fret of the G string. That's major pentatonic. When you add in the flat third in major pentatonic, you've got that sound. It's used all over country and bluegrass, but even in rock, right? We use that all the time. That kind of thing, right? Yeah, Dwight Yoakam. Right? That kind of thing, okay? So this lick just simply, once we get up to the octave, we're going to shift up and play the same thing. Of course, we have to accommodate for when we get to the B string, you've got to go up to the 5th and 7th fret instead of 4 and 6. And I just finished it off at the end with these double stops that are sixths, right? Sixth intervals apart, same fret on the G and the high E string. So I kind of pick and pluck at the same time. Or if you make sure to curl your finger around to mute the B string, you don't want that ringing out, right? So that's the idea there, sort of a distant relative of the blues scale as we know it, but really cool stuff. Like you can kind of be playing out of this position, right? You can do it up here. And so you can kind of do all sorts of stuff here. Right? That whole sort of sound. Okay? So once again, different than the blues scale, but related. Okay? Relative major, relative minor kind of thing comes into play on that. All right? Cool. So yeah, and even MKA Melt talking about adding the major third creates a chromatic line, right? So absolutely, you've got, let's go back up here to A. Okay. And this is a great point. Thank you for bringing that up, because this also speaks to the idea of the blending the major and minor pentatonics now, which is sort of the next step coming here once you know the blues scale. Adding in the major third makes it really chromatic right here on the G string. And I'm talking about A blues with adding the flat third, right? Because we've got adding the major third, sorry, because we got the flat third, the C note, D note, right? Then we've got the blues note. So, okay. Now, a lot of times it sort of doesn't sound that great to just like go, well, in some sort of applications, if you kind of go fast enough and make it a passing note, that could be fine. Something like that. But a lot of time, a more common way to use this is something like, might be like this. So a lot of it is sort of using these two notes, which is the flat third and the major third, to either resolve to the A note, which is your root, or to the 5th, which is the 5th fret of the B string right here. So I do that a lot of times. So that's a great point that you brought up. MKA Melt, the major third. Think about it. And you can use it down here too. Okay, same thing up here. right? Great point there, okay? And so this is sort of like a good jumping off part to sort of just, I know we're running out of time here, but just exploring a little bit about adding in the major sound a little bit. And that's actually the first step, because in blues, a lot of times you're sort of smearing that flat third and the major third and using them sort of at will. And even when you kind of do a bluesy bend on that note, that's really what you're doing, is you're sort of approaching and circling up to that note a fret up, right? You can even bend right up to it. Okay, that's what we're doing. Right? Another quick little tip on right on, Rusty. Thank you, sir. And keep at it, man. Some this stuff is going to stick sooner or later, right? So the other thing to think about going major here is this top sort of box, which is 5/8, 5th fret to the 8th fret of the B and high E string. If you think in terms of 5th and 7th fret, okay, I just mixed up both of those, right? So you can think in terms of 6th fret of the G, 5 and 7 on the B, 5 and 7 on the high string. And typically what we'll do is we'll bend up in some fashion on the 7th fret. You can bend up a full step. To keep it major, or you can bend up a half step to the minor third, which is super common as well, right? So you sort of have, whoops. And then at some point you can just switch over back to the minor pentatonic, okay? Oh my goodness. Susan, welcome, and glad for popping in right at the end here. But did you have the surgery this week, or is it coming up on Tuesday? I'd like to hear if you did have it. Hopefully it was all good. Otherwise, all the best of luck coming up. Okay, all the best of luck next week. And here's to successful surgery and quick recovery, getting back to playing the guitar. I truly hope it goes great. Awesome. Cool. So now I wanted to show, since we're on the topic of sort of going over to major pentatonic, I still have a couple weeks left. Excellent, Susan. That's awesome. Now the BB King box is up here as, I can't remember who it was, I apologize, but 10th to the 12th fret of the B string. So there's a couple of things to think about here. You can think minor blues, or the blues, 10 to 13 on the B, and then 10, 11, 12 on the high string. Okay? But then you can also think major, which is what he does. Which, oh, sorry, Trite 76, that was it. I totally forgot. I apologize. Okay, BB King is up here playing 10 and 12, 10 and 12 as well, which is major. And again, as I was showing you up here on the 5th fret, okay, you can bend up a half step on the 7th fret or a full step to get the major third or the minor third. Same thing down here from the 12th fret of the B, okay? Okay, so So another great box there. Hopefully the BB King box. As always, guys, if you're a member of Guitar Tricks, check out the blues course. There's lots on the blues scale there. And complete tutorials on like there's a BB King tutorial on there as part of the blues course. So it's a lot more detail and depth than I can go into right now. Okay. But check out Guitar Tricks for blues scale in the blues course and anything else blues. And you'll also see it pop up in all the other genres, rock, country, as you can see. So hopefully you got something out of tonight. And I super appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Great questions, great feedback as always. So thank you so much. We're back next week. And the good news is next week, well, first of all, good news is we didn't drop the stream tonight. So I'm hugely plussed about that. But also next week, we're back to another guitar workout. So we're going to do a lot more playing next week too. So hopefully you join me. Have a great weekend. Have a great week. And take care, everyone. And Susan, all the best in the surgery. Looking forward to seeing you in the future sessions. All right, Guitar Tricks. Steven, thank you, sir. All right, guys. Take care, everybody. End in the stream. Boom. See ya.